the Indiana Pacers, they had him, man. They had him, and I really feel like this was a Cavs Golden State Warriors 2018 situation. Because as you guys know, on Tuesday's show, I brought on a friend of the show, Jalen Sandvik. And in case you missed the announcement, Jalen Sandvik will be hosting the June 4th edition of Brandon's World. That will be somewhat of an NBA Finals preview. Game one will be Thursday, June 6th. I'll be back on that Thursday to give my thoughts on game one of whichever series we get. But I had said, when we recorded that on Sunday, the day before game seven, and of course, I did not know that Jalen Brunson was going to go down with a fractured hand, and the Indiana Pacers were going to shoot, damn near 80% from the field in the first half and 70% for the game. And I did not know that, Anthony Edwards was going to go 6 for 18, followed up by the Minnesota Timberwolves defense absolutely blanking the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic basically in the second half being a no-show. Jamal Murray being a no-show in the second half when it really mattered. And even, with Oklahoma City, Dallas, again, Oklahoma City goes up 17 points at half. They cannot hold that lead. It really does go to show that no lead is safe in the NBA. The defending champions were up 3-2 on Minnesota, had a 20-point lead in the second half of game seven, got no contributions from Michael Porter, nothing from KCP, nothing from Christian Braun. They weren't as deep as last year, and the Minnesota Timberwolves took advantage, and they are now in the Western Conference Finals. My debate partner over at Championship Rings, which this Tuesday night we got very heated about these conference finals because Mr. Unger had predicted that the Indiana Pacers before the playoffs would make the Eastern Conference Finals. And I have said the Indiana Pacers, in my opinion, this side of the Boston Celtics, have had the most Mickey Mouse road to get there. You take a look at round one, right? It takes them 6 games to get past Chris Middleton, essentially, and the Milwaukee Bucks. And then game seven against the Knicks, with all that great shooting, they're only up 6 points in the third quarter. Jalen Brunson breaks his hand, and it comes down to Dante DiVincenzo and Alec Burks, who was benched for 8 games to start this postseason to sort of save the Knicks because of the fact that obviously there's no Mitchell Robinson, there's no OG Anunoby. Josh Hart, as essentially it's Aaron is a domino, right? Jalen Brunson, as we mentioned, breaks his hands. Julius Randle was already out of the series. So the Knicks were pretty much down and nobody left. And Indiana, took advantage of it, and credit to them. But I said, Aaron Neesmith gave him 20. Nemhart gave him 18. TJ McConnell, who averaged 10 points a game in his career, is the highest scoring, went crazy in game seven, and everything for the Indiana Pacers went down. I wasn't sure if they could do it again. And the Celtics start off game one with an incredible run. They're up 12-0, and you're thinking, okay, Joe Mazzulla and the Boston Celtics, they got this. They're going to blow out the Indiana Pacers. I had predicted the Celtics to win this series in 5 games. It's going to be no mas. And here come the Indiana Pacers, and they do it again. And they just keep shooting and knocking down shots. And everybody in McConnell and Neesmith and Nemhart, who makes key baskets over Al Horford in the fourth quarter. And you look up, and with 30 seconds to go, despite the high-scoring game, Indiana is up by 3. And this was reminiscent of everything that happened in the regular season between these two teams because the Indiana Pacers, they really don't play defense. They play situational defense. They remind you a lot of a college football team in the Big 12. And in some ways, to me, this Indiana Pacers team reminds me of a March Madness team. And that's no disrespect to Tyrese Haliburton, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, who again are very gifted players and they're all stars, obviously. But typically in the NBA, to make a finals, you need a superstar. And Indiana's got about 3 stars and a bunch of good role players. And yet here, they should have beat the Boston Celtics. And obviously, Tyrese Haliburton throws it off his foot, but that was not what decided the game. Jason Tatum then comes down. He misses a bad shot, and Indiana has a chance to ice this thing away, but off a bad inbound pass, which was a bad idea, which clearly went up Pascal Siakam. Jaylen Brown maybe makes the most clutch shot in the NBA playoffs since Kawhi Leonard's ring around the rosy shot 2019 Game 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers. and goes bang on him. Pascal Siakam makes pretty good defense. I actually thought there could have been a foul on the play. I thought he swiped his shorts. I also thought Jaylen Brown goes down after the play. Maybe there's contact. Regardless, Jaylen Brown makes the shot. We go to overtime. Once we went to overtime, you just sort of knew. As I said, this reminded me of the Cavs Golden State Warriors finals where Cleveland, despite having LeBron and Kevin Love, they redid that roster at the trade deadline, but going up against, Curry, Clay, Draymond, and Kevin Durant, all still in their prime. Cleveland was a significant underdog, despite this being the fourth straight finals. Those two teams would play against each other. And the Cavs, obviously, they had them game one. LeBron as the 51-point game. George Hill goes to the free throw line. J.R. Smith forgets the score. And that was pretty much the series that the Cavs could not recover from. Typically, when a series is such an underdog, you have to steal one of these two games. And I don't know, maybe, my buddy Jalen Samvik and I were texting last night. Maybe Indiana is so naive. They just come out, they don't care, and they play very well in game two. Though historically tonight will be a blowout, Boston. And then game three, Saturday night, will decide if Indiana can get back in this series because Indiana will give Boston everything they can handle in that field house in Indiana. Again, the Pacers to me, they took advantage of a road the Celtics sort of took advantage of. Again, for Boston, no Jimmy Butler, right? Round two, no Jared Allen. Then they end up with no Donovan Mitchell. I had said that it does feel like to me that, Siakam, Turner, or Alburn are going to get hurt in this series because it feels to me like the NBA gods, especially after Tuesday night, are saying, hey, the Celtics, we gave you no Jimmy Butler. We gave you no Jared Allen. We gave you Donovan Mitchell getting hurt when it looked like that series could be on the ropes. We eliminated your potential biggest threat to a championship and the most experienced team out of the remaining teams left in the West in Denver, who you struggled with in the regular season. The NBA gods, in my opinion, are saying, let there be Boston. Indiana to me reminds me of maybe a more talented 2021 Atlanta Hawks team. Remember that Hawks team defeated the Sixers in game seven. They were a 5 seed that took out the Knicks in round one. Then they took out the number one seeded Sixers. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and Milwaukee promptly disposed of them. It feels like to me now that after that game one, that was the shot for Indiana. Boston is going to properly dispose of them. Moving on to the Western Conference, so again, Dallas, I picked them to beat Oklahoma City in 6 games. I thought that was an incredible performance by Luke and Kyrie in game six of that series. I thought Derek Lively was again huge on the boards for Dallas, and obviously the incredible play by Luka to kick it out to PJ Washington in the corner. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander absolutely does commit a foul. I would have not challenged it on that play if I was Mark Dagnall and the Oklahoma City Thunder because I need that timeout left in my pocket. Because regardless if PJ Washington makes all threes or free throws, I should say, all free throws or not, I still have a timeout in about 2.5 seconds to go down and shoot a game-winning shot. Um, Oklahoma City obviously does decide to challenge. It looked like a foul to me the whole way, and Dallas ends up winning the series. And then, as I mentioned, the Denver Nuggets have the biggest choke job in the history of the NBA playoffs for a game seven. No team had ever come back from 11 down to win a game seven, and Minnesota came back, down 15 at one point. So, credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Though last night, again, I thought Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving put on an absolute display, giving 30 plus to give Dallas a chance. And that was my one concern about the Mavericks going into the finals. Again, I picked them to beat the Clippers because of the Kawhi Leonard injury. I picked whoever would have won that Clippers Dallas series, which I thought was going to be really close until we found out Kawhi Leonard was not going to play in that series to beat Oklahoma City. And I thought the winner of that series would lose to Denver. I was very back and forth on this series on who was going to win. And, Anthony Edwards is obviously a very good player, and Minnesota's got Cat, and they got Rudy Gobert, who's been, more amazing in these playoffs than they had ever been, before in their careers, and Jaden Daniels had a big game one. But I go back to the fact that Anthony Edwards is only 22 years old. And if you heard my discussion with Jalen on on Tuesday's pod, excuse me, when we talk about Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan didn't even do this at 22 years old. And obviously, there's comparisons to Michael Jordan, the way he talks, the way he acts, waving the crowd in Denver, obviously calling out Kyrie Irving in game one. But again, nobody this side of LeBron James has done this at 22 years old. And that's what I go back to is if Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves were to win this championship and Anthony Edwards were for the most part lead the team to the championship, I do feel as though at this stage in his career, you could consider Anthony Edwards better than LeBron James. And that's no, easy statement to make there. I think, in my opinion, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are the most experienced team. This feels like Dallas's time. And again, if Minnesota cannot stop Luka and Kyrie, that is going to be their downfall in this series. They have great defenders. They can throw at these guards. Mike Conley, Jaden Daniels, Kyle Anderson. And those two guys, Luka and Kyrie, would not be denied in game one. Now, obviously, Minnesota's down 1-0. I know that Denver obviously came back down 2-0 after losing 2-0 at home. Though for a young team, it may be too much. Dallas doesn't play very good defense either, though they did better over the regular season. I think that it will come down to, again, who plays better between the role players, because I think Anthony Edwards, Cat, Gobert, etc., will sort of cancel out Luka and Kyrie. It will come down to, as we saw in Game 7 with the Pacers and the T-Wolves, what do you get from Jaden Daniels? What do you get from Mike Conley? What do you get from these other contributors off the bench and in your starting lineup?
Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.